Let the record show it's 6:17. I'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Council of April the 9th, 2019. We've got some special guests this evening, and a lot of guests and a lot of citizens, and we welcome all of you that are in attendance here this evening. This evening, Mr. James Dalton, if you would, lead us in our invocation. But if I could do this, if I could take the liberty, Mr. Scoutmasters, at the conclusion of the invocation, we do the flag salute. Could we have these young men come forward and lead us in our flag salute, please? Can you do that? They're Boy Scouts, they're always prepared, right? All right. No. Spoken like a true Scoutmaster, yeah. If you're able to stand, please stand for our invocation and our flag salute. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and you may be seated, and thank these young men. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Here.
Councilmember Gruby.
Here.
Councilmember Dills.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Here.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Here. For the record, all members are present. We have a full quorum. Our first order of business, if you're following along on the agenda, we have several presentations this evening. I'd like to invite council members, city manager, city attorney down to the floor as we make these presentations, and I think even accept one. So I'll see you on the floor down there. Cindy? Where's Cindy? Cindy, you're supposed to be down here too.
Well, I was going to come down for the awards.
Nancy, would you come on up, please? I'll let this special lady talk about our first presentation. It's a presentation of the Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award to the City of Durant. Ms. Ferris, most of you know, has been heavily involved in this endeavor, along with our the Wall That Heals that's coming. We had the opportunity, I think Friday a week ago, to have the official designation of the City of Durant as a Purple Heart City, and we're honored by that. We're honored to accept that, and I'm wearing my Purple Heart pin, as a matter of fact, that those guys gave us. Over here, Miss Nancy.
I'd like to read the letter that was written by the Vice Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. It says, "It's with great pride that on this day, March 29, 2019, we dedicate Durant, Oklahoma as a Purple Heart City. With this meritorious commendation, this proud city is sending a message to the world that they honor combat wounded as well as all veterans and military organizations. Signage along Interstate 6975, recognizing Durant as a Purple Heart City, will be a reminder to all passing through of the respect and honor the citizens have for the service of its veteran community." And it's signed by the Vice Commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Mr. Mitch Reed. This plaque reads, "The Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award is bestowed with pride to the City of Durant, Oklahoma, for your dedication and support honoring America's combat wounded veterans and all veterans becoming a Purple Heart City. Presented by the Patriot members of the Ernest Childers Chapter 589 of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, United States of America."
Nancy, thank you so much. We have a special place for that here in City Hall, and thank you. We're honored. Okay, we have a couple of proclamations also that we want to recognize this evening. A proclamation declaring April the 14th, 2019 through April the 19th, 2019, National Communications Week, recognizing our 911 Public Safety Communications Specialist. I think we have some of those people here. I know Chief, would you come on up too? And I think we have Alicia Dennis. Is it Alicia or Alicia? Dennis? Amber Sendejas, and Lacey and Casey. Lacey Dillingham and Casey Roberts. Are they here? Come on up here, ladies. You guys know historically I read these proclamations, so bear with me. But then, Chief, I'd like for either you or these ladies to say a little bit about what our 911 dispatch folks do.
Well, after or before?
After. I don't want to be here all evening, Chief. So, whereas in appreciation of our men and women of the Durant Communications Center, who are in the first line of defense in any crisis needing the response of public safety, whether fire, police, or EMS. And whereas these dedicated professional 911 dispatchers serve as a lifeline to both the citizens of Durant and Bryan County and to the public safety first responders. And whereas having a proper and swift 24/7 911 public safety answering point is vital to the safety and well-being of not only the residents of Bryan County, but to the mobile population, tourists, and visitors as well. And whereas the Durant Communications Center has been recognized as one of the leading 911 centers in the state of Oklahoma by the chairman of the Oklahoma State 911 Advisory Board, and that's a great recognition that these folks have earned. And whereas it is understood that it is the individual at each 911 workstation answering every call and responding to every need with understanding, courtesy, and respect that truly makes the difference. Now, therefore, I, Jerry L. Tomlinson, Mayor of the City of Durant, do hereby proclaim April the 14th through the 20th of 2019 as National Telecommunicator Week in the City of Durant, and I do further proclaim that the City of Durant supports the 911 Center and its mission of providing superior service in a timely, precise, and skilled manner. Let's hear it for these guys. And I have the official proclamation. We got to get the city clerk to sign that and put her stamp on it. But Chief, say a little bit about these folks.
I absolutely will, and if I can speak on behalf of fire as well, if I have your permission. This is 3 of 12 dispatchers that serve all of Bryan County. For those of you who may not know the workload that they do, 2 workstations, and they dispatch for off of 1 workstation, the Durant Police, the Durant Fire, Emergency Management, and Southeastern Oklahoma Police. Then on the other side, they dispatch for the Bryan County Sheriff's Office, 6 municipal law agencies, 1 public school, 17 volunteer fire departments, and 2 ambulance services, for a total of about 50,000 dispatched calls for service per year. And for that, I know police, fire, and EMS is thankful. You know, the proclamation says you guys are our lifeline, and you truly are. They're the unsung heroes. They're never seen. They're behind the radio. They never get closure. And by closure, when the police and fire go out on a scene, they get to know what happens at the end. These guys are wondering. Now imagine sitting there and you got an officer or a firefighter crying for help. They don't know if it's help for the firefighter or the policeman or help for a citizen. And that's frightening, is it not? My gratitude to all of you guys. And please, Lacey, share that with the rest of the staff as well. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, ladies. You want to say anything? You want to say anything? No. Okay. Thank you all very much. Here, yeah, and Cindy can get that signed into the chief. We have one more proclamation. We do this annually every year in the month of April, and I'm looking for Becca. Where's Becca? Becca. Why are you standing so close to the door? Okay. Becca works on this all year long, and but every April we do a proclamation declaring the month of April as Fair Housing Month in the City of Durant. Whereas the City of Durant decrees that all citizens affirm to follow the concepts, practices, and intent embodied by the laws of the United States of America, the State of Oklahoma, and the City of Durant in regard to fair housing. And whereas the City of Durant has designated the month of April annually as Fair Housing Month and encourages each citizen to implement the provisions of those facts or acts. And whereas the Mayor of the City of Durant designates the Community Development Director as the Fair Housing Activities Coordinator and requests that any person or group of persons planning activities to promote fair housing to inform the Fair Housing Activities Coordinator of said activities. And whereas it is the desire of the City of Durant to recognize those persons or groups who best create an awareness of the need for fair housing practices or otherwise promotes fair housing practices. Now therefore, I, Jerry L. Tomlinson, Mayor of the City of Durant, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month. Council, we've made that official. Now the one we always have a good time at, or with, I think we're somewhere near the, probably the 18th, 19th year of doing this, Paul. Started under your leadership, recognizing our employees and the city employees with the quarterly Employee Service Awards. This evening we're recognizing 85 years of dedicated service to the city of Durant. We have some 5 years, we have some 15 years, and we have one 25-year, whom everyone in this room knows and respects. We'll begin with the 5 years awards, and those that receive the 5-year award receive a certificate, a pen, a lapel pin, and a check for $50. Our first recipient this evening is Master Patrol Officer Thomas Billy. Is Thomas here? Thomas is not here. Oh. Chief, we'll have the next Master Patrol Officer see that he escorts you and that, yeah. Sure, absolutely. We wish he could be here. Our next recipient is also a Master Patrol Officer who will receive a certificate, a pen, and a check for $50, and that's Matthew Polson. Is Matthew here? There he is. Yeah. Come on around here, Matthew. And you got any family here? You want a picture? Or just me today. Just you? Okay. Here, get over here with these guys. Oh, I was trying to dodge that camera. Sorry. Appreciate you. Where's the X? Our next recipient is also a Master Patrol Officer. 5-year recipient, a certificate, a pen, $50. Known this young man a long, long time. I believe he's a brother, a veteran brother. Oh, I guess I should say his name. Nicholas Spencer. Come up here, young man. Family, come up here and let's have a family picture. Amanda and the kids. Hey, Nick. Congratulations. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Hey, how are you, young man? Yes, sir. Good to see you. Hey, pal, how are you? Get over here. Hi, Amanda. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Well, we jumped to 15 years of service now, and we have 3 recipients of that. Actually, I think we just had one up here. They receive a certificate, a lapel pin, and a check for $150. And in our 911 dispatch is Amber Sendejas. Yeah, wasn't Amber here? There she is. Do you have, Amber, you have any family you want in the picture? No. Just you? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Congratulations. Well, let this one slip up here. From our Parks Department, also a 15-year recipient. Young man is doing an outstanding job. Superintendent Marty Pope. Marty. Congratulations, Marty. Thank you. We have another 15-year recipient in our street department. Again, a certificate, a pen, and a check for $150. James Scott. Is James here? James, come up here, bud. One of the hard-working dudes. Congratulations, Scott. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. And this is the guy that works while we all sleep. He's sweeping the streets with that street sweeper. Congratulations, man. Thank you. Yes, sir. We have one 25-year recipient. They receive a plaque, a certificate, a pen, and a check for $250. Chief Jones, why don't you come up here too? This is our fire battalion chief, longtime friend, born and raised here, and I believe, other than when he's riding a motorcycle, he lives here every day. But just a fine fireman and a fine citizen. Chief, you wouldn't disagree, would you? Maybe. Dustin Rudolph. Dustin, come on up here, bud. And a good football player. Where would you guess? Dustin. Family, come on up here. Mom, Dad, or Mom. Sorry. Brother. Good Lord. Mom, you growing big. Congratulations, Dustin. Our next presentation, ladies and gentlemen, and press, is to recognize three outgoing council members this evening. They don't get to clock out when we get through here in a minute, but they're still our council members, your council members, I believe until noon, April the 15th. Crazy day, tax day, isn't it? But I'm going to let them have the opportunity to say something, but before they do, I want to say this, if I could. Chad Hitchcock, Dusty Hawthorne, came on board 4 years ago. Had never, they attended some council meetings, but had never sat up here. And I just, I want to, I think we kind of had a bumpy road at times, but the truth is, at the end of the day, folks, these young men and I walked out of here arm in arm, friends. We, on occasion, could agree to disagree. And that's really what it's about to me in public service, is being able to work with one another. And these guys, their hearts have been right. They've served their city well. And I want to move to Mr. Deals, Mike Deals, former teacher, coach, principal, administrator with the public school system. Mike stepped up to the challenge almost 2 years ago, when we lost former council member Bill Orr. That I think everyone in here remembers Mr. Orr and his service to the city. But Mike has been a friend, and a friend not only to me personally, but a friend to the city and the residents in his considerations as we've, had some tough considerations come before us. But Mike has been a gentleman and a professional, and I thank him for his friendship and the good things that he and Chad and Destry have had the opportunity to work for and towards with our city. I may have more to say, but Chad?
I'm pretty simple. Man, it's been a blast. It was a lot of fun to do this. I didn't think that it would be anything like it was. 1 or 2 days out of the year you hate being up here. The rest of the days you love it. So it's been a pleasure and an honor. And I'm going to be honest, on April 15th at noon, I'm going to be really happy for those guys back there. Thank you, guys.
I'll repeat everything that Chad said, I guess. I've enjoyed it a whole lot. We definitely had some bumpy roads for sure. But you know what? I definitely respect everybody on the council, the city manager, Tom. I mean, it's a lot of hard decisions, but I've really enjoyed it. I'm very grateful for having the opportunity. And I know we're leaving it in good hands.
I'd just like to say thank you. I've enjoyed it. I felt like it was an honor to finish out Bill's term. Bill Orr was a good man. I worked with him. I respected him. So I felt like it was an honor to finish out his 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Tim, you want to add anything?
No, it's the same thing. It's been an honor. Mike came along just a few months after I got here when unfortunately Bill passed, and I've got to know these three gentlemen a good deal of time. We spent a lot of time together. They do, and when it comes down to it, all three of them have this community's best interest at heart, and that's where they're here. They have a very serving heart, and I think Chad told me a few moments ago, when those guys do take office, he's got a six-pack for all three of you.
No problem. So, I got you.
And we want to give them their plaques.
Yeah. And we do have a very nice plaque with a gavel that we want to present to each one. Here, Cindy. Mr. Mike. Yeah. Y'all kind of close in, maybe. Again, gentlemen, thank you for your service. I think it'd be in order to, we have the newly elected city council members sitting in the audience this evening. I think Tim just mentioned the servant's heart, and I think we've elected three people with the servant's heart. I'd like to, Danny Scher, for those that may not know Danny Scher, Danny, stand up, and Steve Brittingham, and Mike Morris, Mr. Mike Morris. These are our three new council members. They go to work at high noon next Monday.
We're also going to do the school presentation real quick.
Oh, yeah. Gosh. That's under, hang on. Oh. Mr. Hazel, Mr. Piercy. Nope, Mr. Hazel. We have a special presentation by the, not only from Trace and Dina Sherrill, whom everyone knows, but from the Darien High School Student Council folks on, we've already accepted, I think, 2 handicap swings sets earlier in the year or late last year, and they are presenting and paying for an $11,000 worth of 2 handicap swings to be placed at Carl Albert Park and one at Keithley Park. John, bring your folks up here and these young people. And everyone knows Teacher of the Year, Mr. John Hazel.
I'll try to be as brief as Chad. I want to introduce Abigail Boatman, Taylor Piercy, Katie McCraw, and Annie Cox. Annie Cox and I do student council together. And just want to share quickly, but we don't do this a lot. We don't do a lot publicly, but I want to tell you about some amazing kids right here. And they just represent a really big group of amazing kids that we have. This year alone, they have raised over $30,000 to help. At Christmas time, they bought Christmas for over 50 children in town, working with various organizations like the Women's Crisis Center, et cetera, that wouldn't have Christmas. And then one of our fellow students lost his mother, who was his only parent. They did a fundraiser and raised $20,000 for him to help him as he graduates this year and goes to school. And then we heard about the swing project from Dina and Trace. And so these guys worked their rear off, and they raised $4,500 to do that. And I chance meeting with Dina at a restaurant a month ago, and she says, the price has gone up. And it's more than that. And so we didn't know what we were going to do. So these guys got with Dina, and I just want to tell them thank you. Dina and Trace are going to give them the extra $1,000 that it takes to make that. So that's where the $11,000 for the 2 swings come in. But these guys have done a fantastic job, and I just want you to know that there's a bunch of kids up there doing a whole lot of work, and they work their tails off every day, and we're proud of them. So thank you guys. They're the ones that did it.
Thank you, Mr. Hazel. Thank you, guys and gals. Thank y'all for what you do and who you are. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Put your sunglasses on. Okay, we want to thank and congratulate all the recipients this evening, and those employees that received their service awards. Takes us actually to item number 2 on our agenda. Under the consent items, to help streamline meetings and allow the focus to be on other items requiring more strategic thought. The consent items portion groups the routine, procedural, self-explanatory items together. These items are voted on in a single motion. However, any council member requesting further information on a specific item can remove it from the consent items for consideration under item number 3 this evening. So are there any, we have items 2A through M. Are there any to be removed for consideration? If it's appropriate, Tom, I'd like to, as far as L, we just made that presentation or accepted the donation, but that'll be included in our consent docket on the swing sets from Trace and Dina and the student council kids. That's item number L. I think item number I, I'll ask to be removed. Are there any others?
Can you just ask a
Mike-
question?
Mike Davis didn't. Oh, okay.
On G, I know there's a recommendation for the 2 nominees, but the way it's worded is select 2 nominees. Do we need to remove that and specifically state them based on how that's worded, or are we okay?
It says it in the actual agenda.
Oh, okay, disregard.
So we're good with G. Okay, so we have I. Is I the only one? Entertain a motion for the consent items.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. That takes us to item number 3, I. And I just wanted to take a minute. In the consent docket, we accepted the resignation of Darien Industrial Authority Board Member Billy Blackburn from the at-large position. And item I is to consider approval of the mayoral appointment to the Darien Industrial Authority for the at-large seat vacated by Billy Blackburn, and I am recommending Miss Ashley Studeville. I visited with her, and she has accepted the challenge. Have any questions, or do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries, and Madam Clerk, you'll let Ms. Studeville, we'll send a letter, and, okay, takes us to item number 4 under information items. Are there any consideration or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 5 on the agenda. 5A, consider acceptance of fiscal year 17-18 annual audited financial statements, including single audit and performance. Mr. Greg Buckley. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have with us actually our financial consultants that help work with our financial statements and prepare the documentation necessary for the audit itself, and that is Frank Crawford, who will also review the performer meter. That kind of gives an outline of our financial position overall as a community, and those elements that sort of quantify how we are progressing in our financial status on some criteria. And then also with us is Andy Krimmer, who is Representative Arledge, who will speak to the financial statement and the audit itself. The audit was an unqualified audit, so it was actually a positive audit. So we are our clean bill of health. There are a couple issues that have been identified within the audit this year that relate to operations. They are from previous years, and they just happen to fall within the dynamics of being reported this year. One is the ODOT grant that we served as a pass-through for $1.5 million. And it was just the representation of how that was to be quantified or classified within the audit. We served as the pass-through, but because of the project and the timing of when we received the funds and passed that through, those were different fiscal years, so it did become a material issue related to the financials. And so that was identified. Excuse me. The other is how we had previously represented our workers' comp reserve or potential risk liability for outstanding claims that have been identified differently than this year when we asked some additional questions and received some additional information from our third-party administrator, which changed financially our position of identified potential needed reserves that had to be identified. So this was from claim that was several years ago, 2008, so then we're just recognizing that repositioning of the necessary to identify that proper reserve that needs to be identified within the numbers of the audit. But they can speak a little bit better to the dynamics related to that and those positions. So right now, bring up, Andy, if you want to come up and kind of address the audit, and then Frank, if you want to be available for any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Well, good evening. My name is Andy Cromer. I'm a CPA and an audit partner with Artigen Associates. And so we've completed the city's audit for 2018, for June 30, 2018. Frank Crawford is here as well. He's a CPA, a separate CPA firm. They help the city prepare for the audit. They prepare schedules that they know we'll need, help maybe even throughout the year. They actually write the report, and then they give it to us, and we review the report, and we put our opinion in the report. But two different firms, two different ownership groups, but we work very closely with them, really on a number of cities, to a similar arrangement. Greg mentioned in here, he mentioned the word unqualified opinion, which is correct, but it almost sounds kind of like bad. And so the word we use now is unmodified, so that simply means the opinion in here has not been modified from the standard kind of boilerplate letter, if you will. So it's what the state expects to see. It's what your bondholders expect to see. And so that's the opinion that you wanted. As far as going over this report, Frank will come next, and the performator that he does, we don't audit that. I have yet to even see it, but he pulls the numbers from this report, and it's a lot more user-friendly than going through 90 pages of this. And so I'll leave the actual presentation of what's required when a city spends over $750,000 in federal grants. So when that's the case, we are required as auditors to go in and look at those grants and test some of those grants, not all of them, but test some of them essentially for compliance. Did you spend the money on what the grants were supposed to? Did you administer the grants the way the federal government intended for them to be administered? So if you don't spend that much, you don't get this report. But you did, so you have it. And in here, of course, unless you all have specific questions, then by all means. You should have two other documents. One is called the single audit reports. And Greg mentioned this. This is required reports, really. One deals with compliance, and part of it deals with compliance, part of it deals with your internal control. And that's citywide without regard to a federal program. That's just the city as a whole. The second report's very similar, but it deals specifically with your federal grants. And so Greg mentioned that, but there are two issues in here that came to light. Both of them are, one of them is extremely unusual, just the way it played out. And that's the grant for the $1.5 million that Greg mentioned, and just the way it came to be. And we thought the state had it. No, you guys have it. No, it's back and forth. And so there was certainly some confusion on there. And that finding, it's a finding, but it's certainly not a systematic finding. It's not, it's a one-off, and it's certainly not any, kind of competency on city staff. The other finding that's in here deals with workers' comp, and you all are self-insured for that. And so if someone slips and falls, hurts themselves, you all are responsible for the entirety of that bill. And if you've dealt with workers' comp, you know that can take years and years and years to play out, to even know what you're going to pay, and then certainly to even pay it. And so we have to record a liability when that slip or fall happens. And so we get that number from your third-party administrator. They have actuaries, they have people that understand this, and they come up with a guess. And that's kind of essentially what it is, but it's an educated guess, and we use that. And so we hadn't had that report in the past. We got that report in 2018, and it had some fairly big numbers. There's a couple of large potential claims on there that's causing that number to be that large. So again, that's a bit of an unusual deal. It's even more unusual to have a couple large claims like you all do. So, and I think several of them are many years old. So those are the two issues, but again, I think both of them are, I don't think they are not recurring. There are some findings as an auditor that would bother me more than others, and these two don't necessarily fall in that camp, just because of what they are. So any questions or comments, issues as far as and I don't know if you all have even seen this yet or not, but if that made sense to you, if not, you can think on it and ask me after you've had a chance to think on it, or Frank Crawford is certainly aware of it too. The third document is a communication letter. This is something we are required as auditors to give the governing body, and there's 7 or 8 bullet points in it that we are required to discuss, whether there's anything to talk about under those 7 or 8 bullet points or not. And so really the only thing that's in here that I do want to point out, it's not good or bad, it's just how it is there are some estimates involved in your financial statements. I mentioned the workers' comp estimate. The other ones are, the biggest ones are deal with your pension. You know, you have police pension, you have fire pension. The way the accounting rules work, the fire pension is underfunded. Police is actually pretty close. It's essentially fully funded. The other one is not. And so you have to record your proportionate share of that liability. You and all of the other 500 cities collectively get a piece of that. So it's not at the state level, it's at your level. But that actuary report that we use, that's full of estimates. The city has their own pension plan for the non-uniformed employees. It's the same type thing. It's full of estimates. It's financial data. It's non-financial data. You know, how long will people live? How long will they work? What kind of pay raises will they get in the meantime? And so all of those things that are from here until, you know, the end, I guess, is an estimate. And so it's the best we can do, but those things have to be measured, and so those are in here. The only other thing that's in here that's not just in here because we have to is we talk about the two findings that we had, so I don't want to repeat them. It's the same thing I've told you, but that's in this letter as well. Other than that, you guys, I mean, we enjoy coming down here. You've got a good group. I know some of you all or some of the group here is newer, but the Crawfords have certainly very helpful and get us what we need as well. So collectively, as a group effort, we certainly enjoy it and appreciate it. So thank you. So any questions or comments?
Any questions or comments?
All right.
Very good audit. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Well, now let's see if we can make sense of what Andy just said. I don't know if you've ever read an audit from cover to cover, all 88 pages, but if you have, you're probably going to be extremely frustrated because after about the table of contents on page 4, all you're going to see are pages that have column after column after column of numbers followed by row and row and row. And we've been scrolling through it on the screen as Andy was talking, and I could kind of hear the groans from the audience of, gosh, first of all, I can't see the number, and then second, why are there so many of them? That's where the performator comes into play, and that's what's on the screen right now. 20 years ago, because we specialize in municipal finance issues, we decided to try to come up with a methodology that could reduce those 88 pages of an audit into something that everybody could understand, whether they were an accountant or not. We did it just for Oklahoma cities initially, didn't realize how popular it would be. It got picked up nationally by the largest college and university textbook for government and nonprofit accounting, and it's now taught in college and universities. This very thing that we have developed is taught around the country, and it's used not only by dozens of Oklahoma municipalities, and governments, but it's used across the nation, and it's used in 11 international governments, and it's also used by the U.S. Department of Interior to measure the health of Puerto Rico and Guam and territorial nations such as that. So what started out as just a simple, can we figure out a way to explain the financial health and the success of a government in a scale that everybody could believe, and it kind of exploded into what you see here. And so it's very simple. What we did was we simply decided that we could take those 88 pages or 100 pages or whatever they are of the audit, and we could reduce it down to a scale, basically saying, well, how are we doing on a scale of 1 to 10? With 10 being excellent financial health and performance, and a 1 being extremely poor financial health and performance. Because everybody, whether they're an accountant or not, tends to understand that scale on no matter what we're talking about. And so the Performeter doesn't have 88 pages. It only has about a little over 20 pages. But there's about 15 or 16 pages of charts and ratios that we look at that we think are extremely important to the government. And what we do is we rate those on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we accumulate all of those with a weighting system so that on page 5 you can basically see the overall score of the government. And I'll try to move that forward a little bit so everybody else can see it. And so this is kind of the culmination of this report, although it's up at the front, because a lot of people want to read the summary and they don't want to read the detail. And so there's 2 or 3 ways to read this. If you like pictures, there's a couple of different pictures. If you like words, there's a few words. What there aren't are a lot of numbers and columns and rows, which is why it appeals to non-accountants. And so the couple of ways to look at this is basically on the left side you can see that scale of literally 0 to 10. I say 1 to 10 because it sounds better. Knowing that there isn't a government in existence that can score a 10, and there isn't one in existence that will score a 0. The government that would score a 10 doesn't exist. It would have to have no debt, no taxes, brand new streets. It would have to have perfect administration. It's just not there. No government will score a 0, although Puerto Rico is testing that theory. They are currently at about a 0.75, which I never thought I'd see anybody less than a 1. You know, if you've seen obviously some of the news about Puerto Rico, you understand their fiscal health is not very pretty. So we've been doing it here since about 2013, even though we've been doing it in a lot of other communities for much longer. And you can kind of see what's happened in the overall score right there on the left. We've kind of been hovering around the upper 6s, lower 7s. And you can typically pretty much predict a 5% movement every year just normally because of timing issues and things of that nature. But if you'll notice what happened, we were hovering right around those lower 7s, upper 6s, and then we had a nice year in 17 where we jumped to a 7.4, and then things kind of calmed back down in 18, and now we're still at a 7. A 7 is extremely good. The satisfactory rating is a 5. So if you were dropped down to a 5, that's still considered satisfactory, but obviously we like to see cities in the green, and on every page you'll see that little speedometer in the top right corner, which kind of gives you an idea of where you are on the scale. So there's 2 or 3 different ways to read it, but the overall score for this year is a 7. It's about a 5% drop from where we were in 17, and it were really related to about 2 issues that weren't as good in 2018 as they were in 2017. One of them is sales tax revenue. In 17, you had about a 10% increase in sales tax over 16's numbers. And then in 18, you only had about a 1% increase. Still, it's good. It's an increase. It just wasn't as good of one that was there in 17. And so we consistently try to measure this from year to year. You can kind of see where that goes. And then we take that overall score on the top right, and you can see we divide it into 3 subcategories, what we call financial position, financial performance, and financial capability. All that really means is position is a picture of where we are right now. How much money do we have? How many assets do we have? How much money do we owe everybody else? It's our financial position. And notice that of the 3 scores, that's the lowest one, a 5.5. Still above satisfactory, but the lowest of our 3 areas. The best area was the performance. The performance, although it wasn't as good as the performance in the prior year, was still extremely good. So the fiscal year 18, we had a very good financial performance, an 8.5 on that scale. The financial capability, I want you to think of that one as financial sustainability. Can we sustain these operations and this quality of service to the citizens over a period of time? In other words, have we maxed out our debt? Have we maxed out our sales tax? If you had, those scores would be much lower. You'd be in the 1s and 2s. But since you're still scoring in the high 6s, low 7s, you still have quite a bit of capability. So basically, the weighted average of these three things produces that overall 7. If you ever wanted to read more detail of this, you could actually flip pages and you would see how we get to these ratios and kind of what they are. Some of them are pretty simple to understand. Page 8. My eyesight's not very good. Page 8 is one that I think is pretty simple to understand. It's our general fund, and it's how we're doing on our general fund balance. All that really means is how much money are we carrying over every year, and we calculate that as a percentage of our annual revenue stream. And so we've kind of been hovering around 10% over a number of years. Last year, or 17, it actually went up because we had a great year of sales tax. In 18, we didn't have quite so much a year, so we're now kind of hovering right around that 9-10% issue. Notice that in the scale, in our speedometer up there, it's in the yellow, it's right around a 5, because you really want to keep that fund balance of the general fund above 10% of its annual revenue stream, because if all you have is a 10% cushion, one ice storm will wipe that fund balance out. One unexpected large purchase will wipe that fund balance out. So you have to be a little bit careful with that fund balance. Part of the reason why the score went from a 7.4 to a 7 in this year is because we ate a little bit of that fund balance up. The other slide I think that might be of interest is maybe slide 18 or 19. I'm going to find it. We've already talked a little bit about it. It's sales tax growth. And as you can see on the screen or in your slides on page 19, I believe, that the sales tax has consistently over the last six years or so, or 5 years or so, has been going up. Some years it goes up more so than others. We had our largest jump obviously there in 17, between 16 and 17, that 10% jump that we talked about, and then a 1% jump based on what the audit says. Now, remember, the audit uses accrual accounting, which is not exactly cash collections. We actually anticipate the sales tax that's going to be received in July and August, because most of that was from sales that were made pre-June 30. So we back out the first 2 months and put in the 2 months of the accrual. And so if you're thinking, well, I don't remember it going up 10%, I thought it was 8, it might be because there's a timing difference between cash collections and accrual. But those are really the two slides that kind of affected that overall score that we saw on page 5 at the very beginning. So I don't know if that makes it any easier to understand. I mean, it certainly does for me. But to get to this thing takes quite a bit of time. And I don't like to use unaudited numbers. I like to have numbers verified by the auditors before they go into this report. That way I know that this report has some substance to it and has some verification to it. So that's kind of where we are. If you want to talk about other slides that I didn't cover, I'll be more than happy to, or if you have questions at some other point in time, I'd be glad to come back and visit with you about them. But this at least allows you once a year to kind of track what that score is doing. If I come back next year and it's a 6, come back 2 years later, it's a 5, I think we need to say, wait a second, something's not right. We kind of need to stay within about 5% of where we're at unless that score is going to go up. We don't want to really drop down into the satisfactory, because then you're one event or one transaction away from dropping into the yellow, and well, that's what we're trying to prevent. So healthy score. Most of the Oklahoma governments for 18 were scoring in the 6s or lower 7s. So you're not out of whack with Edmond, Ardmore, Ada, all the other ones that we do that we have a performer on. You're right in that range. So the highest score I've ever seen is from a municipality in Georgia that had a 9.1. It's happened once in 20 years. So it just doesn't happen very often. But 7 is well above average, and that's kind of where I want to see everybody stay. So questions, comments?
Questions for Mr. Crawford? Questions?
Okay, good. Then it worked.
I think it's a
hope.
great tool.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Are we at a place for a motion, Greg?
Yes. Unless there's other questions for staff.
Are there any questions for Greg? All right, hearing none, our agenda item is consider acceptance of the fiscal year 17-18 annual audited financial statements, including single audit and performative. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Takes us to item 5B, and that's to consider approval of a service agreement with Crawford and Associates for accounting and consulting services, C-2019-15. Mr. Gregg.
Mayor, Council, this will be another one-year contract with Crawford and Associates to continue to serve as our financial assistants in preparing our year-end financials to get for the audit and other consulting services that we utilize them for and our resource to.
Any questions for Greg? Are we at a time for a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Gentlemen, thank you. Takes us to item C. Consider recommending award of a bid for the water treatment plant fluoride system project to the Howard Construction, Inc. for $296,000. Mr. Marty.
So, good evening. For our water treatment plant out at Armstrong, we're going to put in a fluoride treatment system, something we've been talking to you about for the past year. We had bids come back for construction, 2 different bids. If you'll see, one was $296, the other was $384, so a pretty significant difference. This is for a bulk system, fluoride treatment system. We feel like the $296 is a good bid, and we wanted to make sure and get an award letter out for that. Probably construction would start later in the summer. It wouldn't be a turnaround that would be real quickly upon us. So, anything I could answer for you?
Maybe just a due diligence question, Marty. The difference in the bids is significant, as you said, but our bid meets all the specifications.
Yes, yes. And you'll see a word of notice. The third sheet that I've got to you from Wall Engineering is that bid tabulation and recommendation. He's gone over all their documents to make sure everything's in order and should meet everything we need.
Questions for Marty? Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne,
Aye.
Councilmember Groby,
Aye.
Councilmember Dills,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock,
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Item 5D. Consider approval of Resolution 2019-11 authorizing mural projects for buildings at North 2nd and West Main Street, Main, South 5th and Lost, and 410 University Place, and for fence at South 4th and Lost. And I think Mr. Doug's going to go over all this with us.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Yes, actually a little bit of a change from what we discussed earlier. The artists who are also the applicants were actually here tonight, so we were able to talk with them. So we'd like to strike item C, which is Mackey Serta, from the resolution. The issue with the Mackey Serta reading it off my phone, so I apologize. I need to make it a little larger. That's a recognizable corporate image or corporate logo. So by your sign code, that actually would fall under the classification of a sign rather than an ordinance. So we have talked with the applicants, and they will come back and talk with us about actually putting in a sign request for that. So, so we would just be looking at items A, B, and D.
All right, Destry. That sounds like a you.
Okay, now, we don't have that by A, B, and C, but can you identify by address for us? Dave?
Oh, I apologize.
I think they have it in there as ABD.
It's
inside the resolution.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
it's yes.
Okay, well,
It's the next.
Mr. Mayor,
oh, I
if,
see it, yes.
if I may, and this is just a question because I'm not sure, but with B, also the Iron Horse one, my understanding is that was a brand or an identifier for a specific business as well.
The way it's been explained to me is that is not the case, that it actually is the graphic of the Iron Horse train that's there as part of the image. I've got the artist here if he'd like to answer that directly.
This is not representative of Janie Umstead's logo or her business name or anything like that. This is the title that I think she's going to call her building. So it's not necessarily the business name or anything like that. It's just kind of a title for her space there to go along with the image of the locomotive because it's by the tracks on that building. But it's not a logo to be used for anything in that way.
Mayor, if it's the council's pleasure, though, we could pull that from this item as well, research that further for you, and bring that item back if you prefer.
Okay, help me understand then. Which item is that?
That would be what is listed as B.
B?
As
in
B.
Bravo?
Yes.
And
So the address of the mural for C is 410 University Place.
Okay, so
Correct.
B and C are the,
Yes. So it would be B and C that we would remove at this time.
if indeed council.
Yes,
does
at
so.
obviously the council's discretion.
I'm good. Just, I think except for the, yeah. Well, we've got two other opinions. It's not. Any other questions for Doug or for the artist?
What's
If
the
not,
address
I'll
on
consider a
C?
motion.
What's the address on C? That's 410 University.
What we have is that would be the 410 University Place.
Place. I'll move to approve resolution 2019-11 striking references to C at 410 University Place.
Second.
A motion, we have a second. Any discussion, questions? I have a question. Should we strike that or table that portion?
Recommendation from.
No, I think you should strike it. You should adopt the measure striking that portion. If they want to bring that one back, it can come on a separate resolution.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Doug and Clay. Dottie. Takes us to item 5E, consider entering into a contract with Claims Recovery Specialist LLC for the attempted recovery of fire services on behalf of the city of Durant from its citizens and/or their auto and home owners insurance policies. Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The last council meeting, I brought you some information on this, and what we're trying to do is this would be a third-party billing company that would go out, that would send out bills to try to collect and recover some of the costs that is incurred on fires, automobile accidents. We use some of our supplies. We use them up, and then we have to purchase some more. Well, most insurance policies has that built into it to for fire departments to help recover some of that cost, and it would be a tax savings to the citizens instead of having them pay for it again. You know, that our insurance that we're paying for we could recoup some from it.
Questions for Chief Joines? Chief, I know I had a question earlier, but got another one.
Okay.
As I read it again, recovery of fire services, but we're also speaking of auto or vehicle damages also, right?
Correct, correct. And we go on a lot of auto accidents.
Right.
And, you know, we sweep up fluids. We have to put material down to soak up the fluids, and this would be a way to kind of recoup some of that cost.
A lot of those run over the stop signs or light poles or stuff. So I would, the language would need to reflect that, would just be a suggestion.
Okay.
As we come to an agreement with them.
Sure.
No, not just fire runs, but auto accidents, insurance, et cetera.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it's already clear, but this does say fire services.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. For some reason, I didn't put that other information in there. But yes, it would be also for wildfires. It could be for hazmat incidents, hazmat spills, vehicle accidents, and I just overlooked that when I put it in there.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, that it's not necessarily in the title there, but it is down in the contractual language that provides for not only fires but motor vehicle accidents, hazmat spills, as the Chief said. So anything that basically where someone commits a negligent act, if that's an insured act, the city could potentially recover some of their expenses.
Yep. Any other questions for Chief? Not entertain a motion.
Move to approve the contract with Claims Recovery Specialist.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item F.
And F is going to follow along with that same claims recovery specialist. And what they will do is they will come in and pull police reports. They'll look through the police reports to see if there's been accidents have caused damage to guardrails, signs, different infrastructure for the city, and then they will bill the at-fault insurance on that also. I know Cindy does some billing on these, but sometimes, like they stated, some of this stuff falls in some of these police reports in different areas, and it's easy to overlook it. So they actually come in, pull records, and get with PD and go through the records to check and see if there's anything that we can recoup money for.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second for item 5F. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groby.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Item 5G, consider approval of resolution of 2019-12 supporting the purchase of a new senior center. Mr. City Manager, Tim Rutherford.
Mr. Mayor, Council, tonight before you is resolution number 2019-12. It's a resolution pledging $100,000 on behalf of the city toward the purchase of a new senior center. As we talked about earlier and at the last meeting, Gay Cunningham with RSVP has been looking for a building for several years to possibly purchase or renovate for our seniors here in Durant. She gave us some statistics last month as to how much we're currently investing into our senior center right now, which I believe is either $23,000 a year, which is not real good for the quality of services that our seniors deserve. Some of the buildings that she had looked at had estimates, architectural engineer estimates of somewhere of rehabbing anywhere from I believe $1.5 to $3 million. A building came up for sale a couple of months ago, which is the Northwest Church of Christ at the corner of Chuckwaw and Washington. They're asking $433,000 for the building. It's 10,000 square foot, and it meets all the criteria for what our seniors deserve. It's very close to our hospital. It's very close to lots of medical offices, our county health department, and a really good location as far as the parking goes and as far as being ADA accessible. I know Ms. Cunningham has been going out and soliciting funds for the last, I believe, 9 or 10 days, and I think she is, with the help of the city, she's needing to raise about another $200,000, of which in the first 9 days, I believe she's somewhere close to $70,000. So before you tonight is a resolution that would pledge $100,000 toward the purchase of this building. And what would happen is if they were able to acquire the building itself, they would deed it over to the city. We would then relocate our senior center to the new location. And it was discussed at the earlier meeting about possibly surplusing the existing facility and utilizing some of those funds toward some of the kitchen equipment that's going to be needed and some of the little bit of renovations that would be needed within the senior center itself.
Do we need any discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve resolution 2019-12 supporting the purchase of a new senior center. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne?
Aye.
Councilmember Groby?
Aye.
Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Good job, Ms. Cunningham. Takes us to item number 6 on our agenda, under public hearings. 6A, consideration to approve or deny request of an amendment to the final plat for the Redbud Estates subdivision located along Commercial Lane. And we had discussions on this, I believe, our last meeting.
And Mayor, we have advertised this as a public hearing. So if you do want to go ahead and hold the hearing, that would be fine before you move forward on this. Or if it's the council's pleasure to just...
I will declare we are under the public hearing portion of the agenda. Anyone in the audience can speak or raise questions on any issue or concern or in favor of or in opposition to. So we are in the public hearing portion. And let's see, Doug, did you have anything you wanted to add or any comments for council? Or are we deferring to city attorney?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would have to say, and council may have have some more information, but I was provided some documentation earlier this afternoon. And it was my recommendation to the council last month that until the mortgage holders for the property owners affected had been notified and provided a release or some sort of consent to proceed, that the council not grant the request for the amended plat. Certainly council can do as they wish, but that was my advice. Pursuant to the paperwork that I've received, it appears as if the efforts to obtain that consent are underway in at least a couple of the matters. There's some communications between counsel for the applicant and the mortgage companies, but that release has not yet been obtained, at least according to the documents that I have. Council may have some other information, but it doesn't look like those releases have been obtained yet, and that was as of earlier today. There was some email communication. So my recommendation remains the same, that either the council deny the request. Again, this is a request that's been going on for some time, or to otherwise dispose of it in a manner that is not an approval.
And obviously, sir, staff supports that. Obviously, staff supports the attorney's recommendation. Planning Commission, as you can see by the staff report that was provided, Planning Commission voted to deny this 4-0. Thank you.
So in a denial, does it have to go back to square one? Where does it have to go?
That would, yes.
Anyone in the audience wish to address Counselor?
I'm David Kelly, a lawyer. I represent Mr. Ball. We have not received a consent. We have talked to individuals with the mortgagees in regard to consents. The first person I talked to was a paralegal with Chase Bank, and he was kind of bewildered that we were coming with a request for a consent to obtain a replat. And I say that to say that what my position has been all along is we need to replat it and then get the mortgagees on board to complete what they need to do, which is we need to issue a new mortgage to all these people, a correct mortgage. We have houses in the wrong place. So, I mean, I've said this before, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? We can't get mortgagees to understand what we're requesting because this is not the way it's done. This person with Chase Bank said he has 4 requests on his desk, and they're all already replatted. So, only thing I can say is that we've done all we can do. We're still trying because it's difficult to communicate with these mortgagees. Everybody wants to do everything by email, and they always give you somebody else to talk to. They pass you along to somebody else. The most helpful person I talked to, he said, well, you're going to have to go to the Chase facility, and that's in West Monroe, Louisiana, and make that request to them. And I have their email. But he moved me along after talking to me for 2 weeks about it. So this is something that really needs to be done for these residents of that, through no fault of their own, have had to go through this process. Their house is not on their lot, but we can fix it. You can fix it. The only question is, well, the mortgagees are not on board. Well, they're on board because they want a good mortgage, and they don't have it. But we're going to fix it for them. So that's all I can say about that issue, and I'll answer questions if you have a question.
Counselor, I think my concerns would be satisfied if one or more of these mortgage companies would say, we are okay with it being replatted and we will address the mortgage at that time. But what I don't want to get the landowners in a position is to do the replat, and Mr. Ball's work is done, and then the homeowners are faced chasing this rabbit that you've been chasing and having to go through all of these efforts to redo their mortgage to a piece of property that has the description of which has changed, like you said, through no fault of their own. So if the mortgage company says, we're okay with it being replatted, go ahead and replat it, and then we'll redo the mortgage. That's okay. I would be satisfied with that and recommend the council do the approve the replat. But what I'm not comfortable with is replatting this property and then forcing these homeowners to go through this mortgage approval process, which admittedly is difficult, for something that they didn't have anything to do with. They didn't cause this. So if the burden should be on anybody, it's on the entity that caused the problem, not the landowner.
And we totally agree with that. And we have done everything we can do in the period of time of the last 30 days in order to accomplish that, but we're just not able to do it. We can do it, it's just going to take more time. It's just an effort that you have to put into it. And we've done that, except for the fact that you've got the banks are kind of like bureaucracies. And they don't return their phone calls. They don't return their emails quickly. The one guy that does return his phone calls and does talk to me a lot is, like I said, at Chase. And his opinion is totally opposite from Mr. Markham's, which is, hey, we understand this because this has happened to us a bunch of times before, as it has all mortgagees. So we're going at it totally backwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Tom, would that be in the form of a written document from each separate mortgagee?
I mean, the mortgagees are certainly able to handle this differently. A Chase may handle it differently than ABC Mortgage Company or a local bank. But as long as, before I would feel comfortable recommending the council do the replat, I'd want something to show that the mortgagee is going to hold the homeowner harmless in this matter. Because if this replat takes place and the property lines change for the homeowner, they own a piece of property that is different than the description in their mortgage, and they're in jeopardy, conceivably. If the mortgagee says, we're okay with that, we'll work through it and hold the homeowner harmless until we get it done, I'm okay with making that recommendation. But until that happens, I can't recommend the council do anything but deny the request.
I'll have to say that I've talked to a lot of people about these types of issues, and that's the first time I've heard anybody with the city talk about holding the homeowners harmless. I've never heard that before. That's a new requirement, if you will.
Yes,
if
sir.
I can speak just a minute, I'm Roger Ball. I'd like to have a couple of comments here. I've actually went and talked to my personal banker one-on-one. I do have two pieces of property in this replat, and both of them, as far as the chart that I have provided, has both had a minus property line, so I've lost value as far as property is concerned. The comment by my loan officer instructed me, he says there's 2 to 3 ways that we can correct this. He said, but first of all, this plat needs to be recorded so that I can make a determination. Number one, can I use an agreement that was signed when we closed the loan, the errors in the mission report, and do a deed correction, or do we need to go do a full remortgage, or whatever step needs to be accomplished? He says, I cannot legitimately do that until I have a filed piece of paper. And each one of these people that owns these property has title insurance, which guarantees that they are going to get a clear title. What we're trying to correct right now is these properties at closings does not have a legitimate title insurance because there was errors that everybody agreed to go back and address and get it corrected. This is only the first step. Once we get this plat approved, there has to be a systematic process that Mr. Adams from Bryan County Abstract has already detailed that in the previous instructions, as well as Mr. Kelly. That has to be finalized. When we get a plat approved, we can actually have something to work to. But until that point, it's hard to get anybody to agree to anything.
I have just a real quick question. Do you have a draft of the new plat? Like, I mean, how would we even vote on it if we don't? Where's the new one at?
It was turned into we had it at the last meeting.
Am I not seeing it? Because that's not, I mean, obviously that's not the new one.
No, that's the old one. The new one actually is, I honestly don't see how this plat was approved for approval to begin with, because of the lots were at a 45-degree angle.
Who submitted the original one?
That's the old one.
I'm sorry, I don't have it.
But that was part of the last one, and what we did, if you'll look from the top, we actually squared the lines up before they would be exactly running with the street where they're square to them. The people on these lots have usable property now if we correct it to the replat. The ones that are right now at those angles, there's no way that they can enjoy the pursuit of their property.
I don't think anybody is disputing the utility of moving the lines. The proposed lines make a lot more sense than the existing lines. But when Chase Mortgage made a loan, they made it based on the existing lines and not the lines that were not even in anybody's head at that point.
I disagree with that, sir.
Well, you can disagree with it, and that's okay.
Here's what they made a loan on, was a MCI certificate that was turned in is the only way that they would approve it. An MCI certificate that showed that it cleared it, and it did not. That's why we started checking it, and that was the error on it. They did not clear it. That's why the false MCI was recorded. That was the only reason they approved the loan and issued title insurance. That's why we're trying to get it corrected. You know, we're just trying to get these people, we know this is something that should never happen. There's checks and balances, about 4 different steps that fell into cracks. It did not happen. Now, these people, once this plat is filed, we can't run off and leave it. They have to have the updated whatever requirements these lending institution requires to go ahead and make these loans full. Because, honest with you, they're not full now, and they need to be corrected. And to get them to say you need to do this, this, and this is going to be very difficult to make happen. And I'm not sure, in talking to some of the previous people that's dealt with this, that's the way it's always been dealt with.
I don't recall having this issue. Have we had this issue before?
No, but it's not a unique issue. It happens. There are incorrect plats periodically. A lot of times they're caught before they're ever sold. This is maybe a little bit more unique that you build houses, you sell them, there's multiple owners, and then it's discovered. So, and it's certainly not intentional. Nobody did anything intentional, perhaps negligent, not intentional. this isn't the only recourse for the property owners. There's a method by which this can be corrected across the street at the courthouse. This is probably more efficient this way, but if it doesn't get done, or there's someone that's dissatisfied with this process, it can be done at the courthouse, and the statutes lay out the method in which that can be done. So the council's not under any pressure to do this until they're comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with it until the mortgage holders for the property owners are on board and express that, either by saying we will do it once the plat is done and give us the green light to do the plat, or we agree to the proposed lines, and I can feel comfortable advising the council to pass this. But until then, I just think the property owners are at some risk by doing that.
Well, again, I'll have to disagree with Mr. Markham. I don't think the court can correct a plat. Though they can correct a plat, they can't replat, and that's what we're doing, is replatting. The court can correct a legal description. The court can't replat a piece of property. That's the way I understand the law.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to address this? I won't speak for council. I'm sorry. In 21 years, I've not had one of these, David, ever. And maybe they are more common than I'm aware of. For me, I understand the dilemma for Mr. Ball. I understand the dilemma for these homeowners. But the bottom line is I have to rely upon this city attorney and his advice. And I think that then makes it incumbent upon you to try to resolve it through what he's recommending to this council. This is just me. I'm not speaking for the vice mayor or anybody else, but for me, I have to listen to that city attorney. Anyone else?
How many different mortgagees are involved? 3.
Before we move further, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak? Anyone in the audience?
Good evening. My name is Lee Henderson. I'm one of them. I hold a piece of property on commercial. My question is, if it doesn't, the replat isn't approved today, is there an extension that he can get to and time to finish what he needs to with the mortgage holders to get this accomplished through the Planning Commission?
We have I'm sorry, go ahead, City Attorney.
My concern, Mr. Henderson, is that if the replat is done today, it ends the obligation of Mr. Ball to pursue anything with your mortgage company. You're on your own at that point. Now, he may do it as a courtesy, but he's off the hook. The replat is done. And any issues you might have with your mortgage company are between you and your mortgage company. This council is not under any, has no authority over Mr. Ball to ensure that he follows through in working things out between you and your mortgage company. He may do it, but he's not under that obligation.
My question was, I guess we worded it incorrectly, was that is it a flat out denial, or can he get an extension to still work with to work with the property holders, just to put this on hold until he does get that information and then bring it back to this committee for?
I think to the extent that this council agrees and that Mr. Ball requests an extension of time, then that is certainly a possibility, yes.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Sorry if I misunderstood you first time.
Thank you, and we actually did that last month by tabling this consideration in hopes that this meeting or even a prior meeting would have had the issues resolved. I also have to listen to our community development people on how many times we can table something. I think there was some issue with, particularly in instances like this, where you're not necessarily limited, but somewhat restricted on how long you can have one of these out there for consideration before it does go back to square one. Go ahead, David.
All these mortgagees and the mortgagors, the owners of the property, are covered by title insurance. So they are insured. I mean, nobody wants to try to collect on that, and that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure that it's completed without litigation. We don't want litigation.
How many homeowners are there altogether? There's 3 mortgagees, and how many homeowners?
There's actually 6. One lady owns her house outright. There's 3 finances, and I own one of them. So that's the 6th property. Would we consider preliminary approval, then a final approval once we get all the approvals in from the company and it can actually file it? So if we get a preliminary approval on it, we can actually file it and work it to get it finalized, then actually come back once this is accomplished, then have a final approval for it. You know, I want to follow through and get this done. This has been a headache in my head, for the last year. And I know we've bothered you, Tom, and I'm sorry. I appreciate all you do. But in the same sense, we need to have a working point. Give us something to work for so that we can get them, you know, here's a preliminary approval, and here's what the new lines are going to be, and here's what we're going to record. But for you to do that, we need you to accept this and give us a letter to receive it. Then we can come back and hand it to you and say, we've done everything we said. Here's the mortgage company. They've accepted it, and we're complete. So that way you can feel comfortable signing off on it, that we have not left these people high and dry, that we've done everything we said we was going to do.
Raises the question, Mr. Ball, for me, to the city attorney. Can that be done on a contingency or contingent upon?
The short answer is I don't know off the cuff. I would think that perhaps that's a possibility. Typically, when a preliminary plat is done, it's done so that for exactly those reasons, you know where to build the houses, financing can sort of begin. But before those houses can be occupied, things are the plat's finalized. Here we've got we're going to have a preliminary plat. If I understand the question right, if the council approves a preliminary plat, we're going to have a preliminary plat with occupied houses, and then we would have to build in some terms that aren't typically there in a preliminary plat to ensure the follow-through.
Exactly. We've got no problem with that. You know, this is something, you know, I've been building for 14 years, and I don't want to run around looking over my shoulder worried about something that we left high and dry and is not complete. I want it to be done and be through with it. But then in the same sense, I don't want to have to start all over at ground zero to come all the way through this process, because these people are wanting to start putting fences up around their swimming pools to start enjoying their property, and we need to figure out a way to make it to where you feel comfortable, they're happy, they can go on with their life, and we can get whatever documentation we need to do to get it complete.
And Tom, I heard a reference to preliminary plat, but this is a request for an amendment to a final plat. I mean, I'm just saying.
It would be sort of a preliminary amendment. I mean, this is novel to me, so I haven't really thought through that issue entirely. But there would, you know, I don't know what kind of conditions there would be. Perhaps a bond posted, so to ensure that, you know, there was some follow through. I'm not sure what that would be, but we can sit down and talk about it. I'm not opposed to something like that, to recommending that to the council if we can sit down and think that through with those terms. I don't think I'm prepared to do that right now, but if we could maybe I'm not sure how to proceed other than to table it to the next meeting or to table it to a special meeting and let the new guys handle it. But but that would be my recommendation. If that's how you wish to proceed, is with some sort of preliminary approval. Let's sit down and talk about that and think with staff and see what that might look like. But I certainly don't have opposition to recommending that to council if there's a way to push that through.
Stretching the code a little bit, but we could treat this as a preliminary replat. But you're correct. There might be a surety bond or something that we would need to put in place to accomplish what you'd like to do. Mr. Mayor, I have no problem with an extension if the applicant requests that, to where we could work on this longer to either come back with a preliminary plat process or resolve this final plat issue. I would not have a problem if they extend that. I am a little more concerned if the council were to table that. You could table it based on his extension request. I'd feel more comfortable with that. But like I said, it's kind of stretching some of the code language, but I think we could probably get in there and find something. We could find a solution to be able to get this to work out.
I think Mr. Ball has made a request for an extension, if I understood you right, sir, either directly or indirectly, but if the council were to consider that, I would like some assurances that we're going to get this taken care of. We don't have to go through this again, if that makes sense. I think we're all kind of wore out over something that...
How could we issue an assurance? Because, we've been in contact with all these Linden people for the last 30 days.
I'm trying to move the ball forward here, Mr. Ball.
I understand. I'm just asking the question.
We're not getting there. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be short, or wasn't short, but we need to move the ball forward here, not only for you, but for this council and for community development and these homeowners out here that are struggling with this. But I'm open to that. We have 4 other council members here.
I know at some point we'll get it sorted out. It's just a matter of figuring out how we get there. I guess to ask, because I don't know the answer to this question. So there's already been a final plat, and now I'm assuming that there was an application submitted to do this. But it wasn't. Can anybody submit an application on someone's property to replat it? So you represent Mr. Ball, but do you represent all of the homeowners also? So
I have consent from the mortgagors to contact the mortgagee.
So I guess that's my question. So can someone submit an application to replat my piece of property? Or does that apply here? I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Guys, bear with me because I just got this packet about 2 hours ago, and so I've been looking through it. But in the packet, we do actually have letters from the homeowners with basically a letter, an affidavit to hold harmless on that. So it's my understanding that all of the property owners involved are aware of this process and that they've consented through this with the application. So essentially the way I believe our office looked at it was that the property owners signed the application alongside Mr. Ball.
No, that's a very valid question. I'm satisfied that the property owners have received adequate notice and are on board with this. I don't think there's anyone that's feels like they're adversarial here, which would typically be my concern, is if they weren't on notice. I think that Mr. Ball and council have been very forthcoming to the homeowners, and everybody's on board with getting it resolved. I wasn't satisfied at the beginning that each homeowner was aware of everything that it might entail once their property lines were moved. I think they are now. I don't think we have an adversarial situation here.
I apologize, just for point of information. I do not have a copy of the plat in this packet. I'm sure there's one back in the back office. I apologize that it wasn't included in your staff report, but Mr. Paul has just informed me that, or I'm sorry, as the representative, has just informed me that the property owners actually signed the plat as well. So they're signatories to that plat. So.
Okay.
And you can legally replat property. There's no doubt that that can be done.
Yeah, and I wouldn't question that. I was just trying to make sure that.
Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? Anyone else in the audience? We'll close the public hearing portion of 6A. Council members have any further questions for Doug? Community Development? Or the city attorney? Or are we at a point for a motion?
So based on the applicant's request to extend it, we would be okay to table it until next month. I'll make a motion to table based on the applicant's request for an extension.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? And I think just maybe to point out, at our next regularly scheduled meeting and/or maybe if we have a special meeting that, no, wait a minute, I think there were some issues with trying to do that on a special meeting, table it to a special meeting. So disregard that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne?
Aye.
Councilmember Groby?
Aye.
Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Under item number 7 on the citizen comments, we had no one sign up. If there are no objections for council, I'll entertain a motion to recess out of regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne?
Aye.
Councilmember Groby?
Aye.
Councilmember Dills?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock?
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson?
Aye. We are recessed out of regular session. Let the record show it's 10 minutes after 8. I'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant City Utilities Authority of April the 9th, 2019. And ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne?
Here.
Trustee Groby?
Here.
Trustee Dills?
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock?
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson?
Here, for the record, all members are present. We have a full quorum. First order of business, consent items. We have 1A and B. Are there any to be considered under item 2? And if not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne?
Aye.
Trustee Groby?
Aye.
Trustee Dills?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock?
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson?
Aye, motion carries. Item number 2 will require no action. Under item number 3, under information items, any request there? Hearing none, we'll move to administration items. 4A, discuss and consider approval of resolution 2019-13 approving professional services agreement for bond counsel and financial advisor for the Oklahoma Water Resources Board Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan application for the automatic meter reading and advanced reading infrastructure system, or take any appropriate action. Mr. Gregg.
Yes, thank you. This is an administrative item as it relates to continuing to move forward with our loan application for the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. So this is a resolution providing for professional services agreement with a bond counsel, which is public finance law. We have a good positive working history relationship with them. We're able to negotiate a 0.75% fee. This also incorporates a financial advisor with BOK Financial for a fee of 0.5%. Both of these have extensive experience working with OWRB on these types of loan applications, and so it would expedite using these professionals who work with OWRB, know what questions they need to know what information they need, and as I understand that by approval tonight, then they can move forward and help expedite this and get this possibly on the May board meeting of the Water Resources Board, so we can move this forward quickly. So I would recommend approval or answer any questions. They are also both here available to answer any specific questions related to their services, but I think it would be a positive move for us to use experts that have good experience with OWRB to help us move forward.
Any questions for Greg? Do our guests have anything to add, or you guys want this?
They're available if I have
Okay.
if there's any specific questions.
Okay. Council have any other questions? Or any at all? Not, we'll consider a motion.
Just want to clarify, the agenda item gets kind of lengthy there. We're just approving the resolution, and that covers everything we need to do.
Yes.
Move to approve resolution 2019-13.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Item 4B, consider approval of a professional services agreement with the Wall Engineering for the AMR/AMI water meter replacement project to provide engineering services as they relate to the requirements for the OWRB Clean Water State revolving fund application for an amount of $3,960. You're right, long agenda item.
My words are running together too. So this is for that same project. The OWRB requires a certain amount of preliminary engineering, budget work, and some of those kinds of things at the front end of the application process. And this would be a professional service agreement with Wall Engineering to employ him to do those things for us for the application. We would bring back a construction service agreement at a later time when the time is right.
Questions for Marty? Not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Item 4C, consider approval of granting an easement to OG&E as a part of an upgrade to the facilities on Country Club Road. Mr. Martin.
Yeah, as they're bringing in some new three-phase electricity for those steel fab and Tuba 6 facilities on the industrial park out there. They're going to be requiring a little bit more space. The poles are a little bigger. They span a little broader span with the wire, and so it really is just a matter of feet that they're accepting. They're needing for extra easements. It's all along the right of way as well. It's not across any of our open pastures or anything.
Questions for Marty? Not, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Aye.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, motion carries. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and all kinds of seconds. The secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne,
Aye.
Trustee Groby,
Here.
Trustee Dills,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock,
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson,
Aye, we are adjourned out of the Durant City Utilities Authority. I think if there are no objections, very quickly we'll take care of the DDA. Let the record show it's 8:16.
Oh, DDA.
I'll call to order the quarterly meeting of the Durant Development Authority of April the 9th, 2019, and ask the secretary to call the roll.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Here.
Trustee Groby.
Here.
Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here. All members are present. We have a full quorum. Under order of business, number 1, consent items.
Move to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Anything under information items? Hearing none. Anything under new business? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. The secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned out of the DDA. We still have the Airport Authority and back into regular council session for our executive session. I don't know that we have to have a motion, but I'd like to call about a 10-minute recess, if there are no objections. saw COLA. I'm okay. I'm okay.
If we could get our city manager to come up here and participate in the meeting, please, that would be fantastic. Can we get our city attorney as well? Any chance we can get you to quit talking to the media over there? What? He's not going to quote you in the paper. Come on, Tom.
I was just making sure of that.
Let's go.
You spell that Tom, T-O-M?
Okay, let's see. Okay, we didn't have a motion to recess, so I'll let the record show that it's 8:35. I'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Durant Airport Authority of April the 9th, 2019. Ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Here.
Trustee Groby.
Here.
Trustee Dills.
Here.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Here.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Here, for the record, all members are present. We have a quorum. Our first order of business is consent items. We have 1A. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Anybody have any requests under information items? And item number 4, citizens' comments. We didn't have anybody sign up. Under 5, under administration, 5A, we are to consider approval of supplemental agreement number 3 to contract number C-2018-60 with Overland Corporation to increase the contract by $24,150 for the installation of flowable fill above the relocated water line as a part of the Durant Regional Airport Eaker Field Runway Extension Project and approved budget supplement 001760. Our action item is actually A1, approved supplemental agreement number 3. Marty?
So as we relocated the water line to the south end of the runway, there was a realization that we needed more flowable fill in the construction budget. Now the good news is this added cost is a reimbursable cost. So 90% will be reimbursed by the FAA, and another 5% will be reimbursed by the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. And so we will only realize a 5% increase in cost at the airport. Part 1 is the actual agreement for that, and Part 2 is the budget supplement that would cover the difference where all the math has been worked in the system. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Marty? If not, we probably need to consider those individually. 5A1, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. 5A2 is to approve the budget supplement number 001760.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the secretary will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. Item 5B, consider approval of the fixed base operator, FBO, minimum standards document and to begin implementation. Mr. Marty.
So again, I brought this to you last month. We had some discussion. There was a request for some more education in the subject, and so today we had some more education for some of the council members individually, where there was no quorum, and tried to help them understand where we were coming from with this. The idea is that we allow anybody to be a FBO by definition, almost like a business registration with this form. Anybody can do it. The employment of the airport manager and whatever staff it would take to run the airport terminal building and facility would be by employees at this point. And the you know, the one contention that we always face is the fuel service, and to be honest, that's really not a part of this. I mean, the FBO agreement mentions it, but our rules and regs already mention the fuel service, and so this just lines up with the rules and regs that we already have at the airport. If you guys wish to talk to somebody about a fuel service issue in the future, you're always welcome to do that as a board anyway. And so what I'd like to look at tonight is this proposition to hire employee or employees to manage the airport in lieu of the current contract that we have with DW Aviation. Be happy to answer any questions I could.
Questions for Marty? Any comments, any questions? If not, is that pretty much your presentation on that, Marty?
Yeah.
Are we out of time for a motion?
Move to deny.
Second.
And I'm sorry, the motion was?
To deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the approval of the fixed base operator. We have a second. Any further discussion? I would ask the question again, as I always do. A vote in the affirmative is to support the denial. A vote in the negative would be the opposite.
That is correct.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groby.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Nay.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
No. Motion carries. And by that, has been denied, the approval.
Motion to deny carries.
Takes us to item 5C? 5C, which is to consider allowing Hangar 10 Aviation LLC to begin fixed-based operations, FBO, out of their leased facility, which would include but not be limited to the installation of storage for jet fuel and 100 LL aviation fuels by Hangar 10 Aviation LLC, and the retail sale of those fuels subject to the fair and equal fuel flowage fee established for all fuel storage tank owners as set by the Airport Authority, and to be located at Durant Regional Airport, Eaker Field.
So I've had a tongue twister to you. I've had a proposal from Hangar 10 Aviation to begin FBO services at our airport, which, to be honest, most of these services are not ever in contention anyway. Again, like we talked about a while ago, really fuel service is the one thing that we have to talk about whenever we're talking about FBO services. And the fact that currently we have the fuel sales at the airport, and this would be an option for an outside entity to take and produce some public sales from their own fuel source. Hangar 10 Aviation is in the crowd, and I'll let them come up and offer their proposal to you.
Hello, Council. My name is Casey Duper, and this is David Bray. We're partners on Hangar 10 Aviation. As most of you know me, I'm local to Durant. I graduated high school here, graduated college here. I'm a corporate pilot based out of Durant, and so is David himself. And we currently have a hangar lease from the Airport Authority, the big orange hangar that we're currently refurbing. And basically what we want to do is just expand upon our investment at the airport. And one way we want to do that is to expand services. So with that being said, you know, it's not just about fuel. It's about, you know, line services and ground power units. Like there's a lot of things that the city doesn't have currently for airport operations that is pretty common across other airports, not just, you know, your large airports like DFW or Love Field. And that's pretty much all we want to do is increase the services. And we don't want to become the sole provider for fuel here at Durant-Acre Field. That's not our intent. We don't want anything to happen to DW Aviation. If, you know, he wants to continue to do business, then all we want is a right to be able to do business ourselves, fair competition. And that's kind of, you know, the gist of it that we wanted to approach you guys about. I don't know if David has any other, you know, comments on that. We could tell you about some of the services we want to offer, but do you have anything?
No, we could, if the council has any questions, we'd be happy to answer, you know, questions about, you know, enhanced services that we're being asked by both our customers and current airports tenants to provide. We'd like to provide that. Some of those are listed on our proposal here. It's obviously all those will be included but not limited to. There are services that we would provide that aren't listed there. One of the more important ones to some of your local tenants are the full service sale of all aviation fuels. One of our proposals, as part of our proposal, we would dispense 100 low lead, which is a fuel used for small airplanes, from a full service truck, as opposed to the currently the only way to distribute or to obtain that fuel for small aircraft customers is to pull their airplane out of the hangar, start it up, taxi it all the way down to the fuel pump, shut it down, get out, fill their own plane themselves, start back up and leave out on their trip. We've been approached by, like I said, numerous tenants that, you know, want that service. So it's something that we would like to expand our investment into the airport and provide for those people. Pull in, pull out services for all based aircraft. Currently is provided for some aircraft, but not for others. You know, we'd like to provide that for anybody that needs assistance moving their airplane. We're more than happy to provide that. Simple things as the summertime approaches, it's getting warmer. Most small aircraft aren't equipped with air conditioners. We have a ground air conditioning cart that we'd like to offer to people that want to use it. We'll pre-cool their airplane for them, stick it in the window, and they don't get an 120-degree airplane. They get a nice, cool airplane. Things that are offered, you know, as basic services at other airports that aren't necessarily seen here. Some of the services are tied towards or aimed towards smaller aircraft. Some of the services are aimed towards larger aircraft. Lavatory service carts, for example. Currently, the city doesn't have any way to service lavatories on business jets as they come in. So, you know, as they service the airport, as the DIA attracts businesses to come in, you know, their executives use the restroom on the way here. They don't have any way to empty that for them, so they can't use the restroom on the way home. You know, it's a kind of a basic service the city doesn't provide. Potable water service is another one. It's done through some specialized equipment, but it allows airplanes that have the freshwater systems on board, allows us to service those systems and bring those back to full capacity. Aside from that, like Casey said, we're both firmly rooted in the community. Casey grew up here. I've been here since 1996. I came here to go to school and never left. It's a wonderful community, and we'd like to increase our investment in it. And we're not, you know, we are not by any means trying to become the exclusive fuel providers out there. The DW Aviation and the City of Durant both serve a vital role out there. And we simply ask for the right to do business and to expand upon the services that maybe the city can't afford to offer or chooses not to offer.
Questions for Mr. Bray or Mr. Dufer or Marty?
I guess my bottom line is, what is it going to cost the city? What will it cost us as far as the fuel you sell, as far as our profit, David?
Well, I don't have exact numbers on that, but obviously, when there is choice at any location, you know, whether there's a multiple restaurants that come into town or a different Target comes in and competes with Walmart, obviously there's a certain piece of the pie that you know, some people will do business with the City of Durant, and some people, or DW Aviation in this case, and some people choose to do business with us. I couldn't tell you exactly what that would be until we actually start up. One of the things I can say, however, is that there are aircraft that frequent the Durant Regional Airport that currently buy minimal fuel services here and or don't buy any fuel at all, simply because the the city is not an approved fuel provider for them. Some of that has to do with documentation and, safety testing of your equipment, changing of water filters, et cetera. NetJets being one of those. It's one of the largest private jet operators in the country, or the largest private jet operator in the country. And the City of Durant or DW Aviation, either one, or approved fuel providers for them. They do buy fuel on occasion when they have to here, but they're not one of their choices. So we see it over the next several years. We see both with the expansion with the Choctaw Casino and other expansion that's going on in the area. We see an opportunity to increase the total fuel sold at the airport, by 20, 25, 30% over the next, 5 to 10 years. So on the short term, is the city going to take a reduction in their, in the amount of profit per se that they make, or the total gallons they sell? Yes. Will that be offset to some extent by increased sales from us? Obviously, we're going to pay a fuel flowage fee for every gallon we sell. So you'll probably see a net decrease, but to the extent that is, it's really kind of hard to gauge until you see what kind of increase is going to come from the enhanced services we're willing to provide. And even on the small aircraft side, I myself own 2 small aircraft that are out there, and even myself, if I hop in my plane and I'm going to Guthrie, or my parents still live in Edmond, I fly out there and see them all the time. The first thing I do is look at the gas tank, and if it's got enough gas to get there where they're going to pump it for me, I buy it from them instead of having to start it up and taxi it up over here. So even just based on the small aircraft sales and the local sales, we expect that to increase just on the services we're offering.
And another question I have, both of you are pilots, so you're gone a lot.
We are, yes, ma'am.
Who would be taking care of things when you two would be gone?
We will hire an FBO manager to oversee the FBO operations. We'll also hire sufficient line crew personnel to staff the airport, or to staff, not the airport, but to staff our operations. And that's one of the actual things that we didn't mention here as part of our enhanced services. One of the things that we like to do is increase the operating hours that somebody is out there to service airplanes. Currently I think, Dwayne, you guys close at 5:30, is that correct? 5 o'clock? Currently after 5 o'clock, there's nobody out there to service aircraft except on an on-call basis. So we propose, or part of our business plan is to expand those operating hours and try and capitalize on people that are coming in, particularly Friday night. You drive out at the airport Friday evening through Saturday morning, and there's 10, 15 airplanes out there. It's not uncommon to see people that have come in after work on a Friday to go visit the casino or to do what else. And we feel that simply having somebody there to greet those people, welcome to Durant, this is something we can do for you. We'd like to sell you some fuel. We can increase some sales that way as well.
Is our airport big enough to have 2 FBOs that won't be fighting, or?
There will be competition. There shouldn't be any fighting. No.
I mean,
there are
airports.
airports.
Are you going to be racing to get the customers, or if you see a plane
No, we
come
don't.
in, are you going to be racing Dwayne out there? Are y'all going to have some kind of understanding?
No, we don't. Most, at least on the private jet side of things, and most private jet pilots are the same way. We made the decision of where we're going to go before the jet ever lands. We've looked at the advertisements for that particular airport. We've talked to the FBO we've chosen. We've notified them, hey, we're going to land at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I need 1,000 gallons of jet fuel. I need a lab service. I need a potable water, whatever. So it's not like you're dueling golf carts out there trying to flag down aircraft. It's most people have made the decision where they're going to go already. So, and this isn't you get into smaller aircraft. It's no sense in fighting over a 30-gallon fuel sale. If they want to buy gas from us, we're more than happy to sell it to them. If they want to buy gas from DW Aviation, we're more than happy not to sell it to them.
Well, I was a little shocked, and I don't know if any of the rest of you were, but if I heard correctly, we learned back in our pre-agenda meeting that anybody can apply to be an FBO out there. We could have 15 of them running.
You could, and you wouldn't support an airport this size that wouldn't support 15. But you're correct. There's airports that are Durant size that have 2 and 3 FBOs, and there's airports that are larger than the Durant that only have a single FBO.
Is there one close that has 2?
Ardmore Municipal is one of them.
Ardmore does.
They have 2 FBOs on the field. Up until a few years ago, Ada had 2 FBOs on the field. One of them recently closed in the last 3 years or so they're down to 1 now. But there are a variety of other airports Durant size that have 2 FBOs. Durant actually probably has equal to or more daily operations, being aircraft takeoff and landings, than the city of Ardmore does, for example.
Do we know already what percentage of the fuel you will be giving the city? Is that somewhere I missed in here, or has that been discussed?
It would be at whatever flowage fee the
flowage.
city, the Durant Airport Authority chooses to set, and it would apply, and, it would need to apply, equally to all owners of private fuel tanks, but.
And if I could, excuse me, Ms. Gruby, as I understand it, they're making a proposal which doesn't have any details really in it. I mean, as far as
right.
the questions you're even asking, or maybe the questions some of the others of us have, but unless I'm misunderstanding, we're considering a proposal that will come back before this authority in the way of a contract agreement at some point with all those details in it. Is that right?
That wasn't necessarily our intent. I mean, that's something that we, could possibly be open to. I mean, basically what the intent was to be able to, or be allowed to put fuel tanks on our own property that we currently lease from the city and begin business. There's already negotiated rates for the city for a flowage fee. It's already established. And so I don't really know if it's necessary for that contract. I mean, but I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Well, this authority is making some decisions here that I think, and they should be involved in future operation.
Yeah, well, I mean, the authority could like I said, the flowage fee that's currently set for Eaker Field was set by this authority. So you could go back and reset that flowage fee at any point in the future.
I guess, guys, and I know both of you too, but for me, easy for you to tell me what you're going to do. But if it's not on a contract, you may or may not do it. And I guess that's where I'm coming from, Casey.
Well, fair enough. And in our defense as well, again, we're not, if we were the sole provider, if you were relying on us to manage your airport or to provide the sole services for you, that would be, a contract would probably be prudent to ensure that the city of Durant gets, services to its citizens and the patrons of the airport. In this case, we're not requesting that. We're simply requesting the permission to do business on your airport. You already have a service provider you've chosen by contract, which is DW Aviation. By his contract, he's required to provide the services that you felt necessary at your airport. We are simply asking permission to provide additional services that wouldn't necessarily need to be, regulated by a contract.
If I could, and step in a little bit, you currently have other people at that airport operating what would be considered FBO. Now, they are not doing fuel. They're avionics or mechanics or different things at the airport. So I don't think it's really important that we have a contract because it's an FBO. The enhanced services are fine. I think that's all okay. Really, the question here is fuel sales. That's always the question. And he is referring to a flowage fee that was established several years ago for the only one other person on the airport that has fuel of their own tank, and that's Southeastern. And we've made a 10-cent flowage fee with them. They also don't sell to the public. They only do their own planes in their own location. And so I'm not sure that that's 100% the same type of business, okay? Fuel sales is one of your two profit makers at the airport. I mean, clearly, hangar rental and fuel sales. That's all you get. And so as much as everybody wants a piece of fuel sales, because that's what drives the business, I don't think our airport will ever support more than 1 or 2 FBOs. And I don't know that the city would ever compete with a private FBO.
Why is that? Why could you not compete with a private FBO?
Because you can offer things that I can't.
Why is that?
Because I don't have the manpower. Because you took my profit and I can't buy people.
So what you're saying is the flying public may best be served by a private entity.
Absolutely. I'm not doubting that. But we're going to end up not paying rent because we gave away our only profit maker. That's what I'm saying. Okay. And I'm just trying to be honest.
So
now, if there's some negotiation.
Sounds like negotiations for fuel flow
If there's some
is in order.
negotiation where fuel flow becomes a zero net sum, then that becomes a question we can discuss. And that's something we're going to have to sit down and talk about. But until that happens, I've got to have the ability to function the way I do. And why would I ever give away a profit maker unless I also give away some of the service that goes with it, right?
Right, and that would be up to this
So-
authority to set, you know, the flowage fees.
I
That
just
can
want
be done at
everybody to be
either.
clear that the big question here is gas. It's the other services, they're welcome to provide tomorrow.
So you said at the airport, there's other businesses that would meet this criteria. They'd be an FBO. Do you know how many other businesses are out there that?
FBO is a very, very broad term, and some of them are called specialty services as well. But they usually include gas, and that's what people see in their brain when they say the word FBO. They don't have to. All those services minus gas, and you would still be an FBO, correct?
No.
No.
An FBO is strictly
well,
to sell
that's-
gas, or
not
sell
what-
fuel. You know, otherwise you'd be having to have a contract with, Magnolia Aviation, which is the maintenance provider at, Durant Airport. You don't have a contract with them. See, BW Aviation's brother, does Justin have a contract with the city right now?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing that.
there's an avion, there's a variety of other commercial entities on the field without contracts. Like you said, maintenance,
We don't
avionics
need a
shop.
contract for those, but the fuel
But
is
but by your
something
definition, they're FBOs.
I don't, that's what I'm saying, you don't need a contract to be an FBO, we need a contract to lock in the fuel situation. That is the only part of this that's questionable. You can operate all the rest of those services tomorrow by right, but fuel is the city's by entitlement until they give it up. If you ever let one person take over fuel sales at that airport, you have to let everybody else have the same opportunity, at the same rate.
Which by using a contractor, which is DW Aviation, you've done.
So officially,
It's
you're.
still my fuel that I'm
Officially,
buying
you're
with my
making a
money.
monopoly against us.
I think that's exactly what the
So
FAA
you-
allows me to do.
So you're agreeing you're making a monopoly right now?
The terminology, I'm not sure where he's going with this, but.
Well, it's
we
the
have
FAA's terminology.
We have the right
It's
to hold our own sales as long as it's ours, correct?
You do. According to the FAA, you have the right to maintain an exclusive, the FAA calls it an exclusive right.
Exclusive right.
So you have the right to maintain an exclusive right, but you don't have the right to grant an exclusive right. So you can maintain an exclusive right.
You're right, you're
You
right.
could, and in order for the city of Durant to maintain an exclusive right, it has to provide the fuel with its own equipment and its own personnel. As it sits presently, as this council just voted a minute ago to deny, you're currently using a contractor, which is DW Aviation, to provide your fuel services for you. So you're, by definition, are not maintaining that exclusive right. You're effectively granting DW Aviation an exclusive right to be the sole fuel provider on your airport, which the FAA specifically says you cannot do.
I think I disagree. I don't think DW Aviation is not the fuel provider. The city's the fuel provider contracting with DW.
The liability's all on them.
Right, but in
Aviation
order to
to
maintain that
administer it.
You're right, but in order to maintain that exclusive right, the city has to use the city employees to do it, and they're not.
And that's not the interpretation we last
But you-
had from
you
the
agree
FAA,
with-
so.
I mean, what is your opinion on that?
I don't have an opinion on that, but other than that the city has the exclusive right with the fuel until they give it up. But once they give it up, they've got to give it up to everyone that wants it.
Correct, you're correct.
And the market may only support one or two, not 15.
You're
but
correct.
I mean, guys, we're kind of getting off here. Really, the main point of this is how does this help the city, right?
Correct.
Does letting them sell fuel, Hangar 10 sell fuel, increase the fuel buying customer base enough to offset the fuel we lose because they're going to choose somebody else or have the option to choose somebody else? So that's what you have to decide, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what's an FBO, who's selling. All that really matters is, right now, is it okay? Will the city come out net neutral, lose, or gain by having another person out there selling fuel?
Well,
Right? Isn't that the main thing? I mean, that's what we all really care about right here, right?
I think it depends on how you define lose or gain. If it's strictly financial, the city loses. We're making the
In
rent
short
payment.
term, absolutely
We're
they
making the
lose.
rent payment on the terminal and everything else, but
Not with fuel cells, we're not. We're using utility that we transfer over every month.
But we go even deeper in the hole if we give up our primary revenue source.
I don't disagree. Short term, they will lose. Long term, will using Hangar 10 grow our customer fuel base enough to offset that loss? To where, that's the goal.
That's the end goal, and to provide, enhanced services to better the experience of utilizing the Durant Airport for everybody involved, both for current base tenants and for people visiting Durant. For a vast majority, not a vast majority, but a large number of people visiting Durant, the first impression they get of the city of Durant is the airport. You know, as the DIA brings in, or any company seeks to locate here, they don't fly into DFW, rent a car, and drive up here. Most of them arrive via private aircraft. So this is the first impression the city of Durant gives, and you know, it is our goal to enhance that impression and to better the airport, provide better services to the flying public.
If they want it.
If they want it, yeah. We're not by any means trying to force anybody to use our services, or we simply want the right to offer additional services.
Marty, did you have any additional info?
It was brought to my attention that the question we had before this that was denied, we'll have to address in some manner in the future, whether that's by another means or by refinancing or something else. Making this a for-profit fuel service actually creates a worse problem with the bond council, because the fuel system service is directly tied to our airport management and is absolutely a part of the bond that was created to build the terminal building, which will create IRS liability. And I can leave it there. I mean, you guys can make your own decisions. Because part of the conversation we had earlier was the privatizing of a government facility. And this is privatizing fuel, which is a part of that.
Which is not a part of the bond, though. Doesn't have anything to do with the bond.
If I could get some clarification.
And we don't use fuel cells to pay for the bond either.
And so I want to make sure we're saying the right words.
And with all due respect, we're not asking to use any part of city facilities. We're not asking to use your fuel tanks. We're not asking to use your terminal building. We're not asking to use your equipment. We're simply asking for the right to do business. We'll provide everything else on our own.
The point I was making to Marty is that we have this other question that we've got to figure out, okay? How we're going to deal with the financing relative to the terminal. What kind of an agreement are we going to have with your existing FBO on a going forward basis? I think these could impact each other. I think the sense I got from the council tonight was you wanted us to kind of relook at what our options were relative to the general management of the airport. In some ways, these kind of go together, okay? But again, whatever you guys decide to do, I mean, we are going to have to deal with the airport management issue, and I'm a little concerned as we go down this road, we limit our options perhaps in terms of what that looks like. Again, don't know exactly how that works, but in the sense that we didn't get a resolution to our management issue this evening, we're going to have to come back with that. So I'm just a little concerned that we start painting ourselves into something of a corner.
Okay, if I could, and I guess in a sense I'm trying to shorten the long extended conversation here that might go on for another hour or so, but would it be acceptable, because we've just heard bond counsel, we've heard Marty's concerns, and I hear what you guys are wanting to do. Speaking for me again. But I would feel better, I'd feel better having a better understanding of our position, and you heard the IRS mentioned in that regard, and regarding the loan.
Jerry, one thing about that is we've been talking to Marty and Tim about this for months. So this is not this is just something that we finally were able to bring to you.
Yeah, our initial request to address this board or this council or authority occurred back in January, and we've just now been given the opportunity to do so. So
and
undue delay is not something that
we're... Appreciate that, and I respect that. I think if I recall, the IRS concerns came up just in the last 30 to 60 days.
On both the whole time.
Oh, okay, but I'm not trying to...
Yeah, and to clarify one other point is that we're not seeking any form of airport management. We don't want to impact the way the airport's managed. We don't want to. We're very supportive of DW Aviation. We think they're doing a fine job in the way the airport's being currently managed. We don't want to impact that. We're simply seeking permission from this authority to do business and to provide some enhanced services.
Which includes fuel cells, correct?
Correct, yes.
That's correct. From our own tanks that we purchase.
Understand, and to reiterate what's been discussed is we've also for transparency's sake, we've been discussing for several months flowage fee rates as well, and it's gone back and forth as to, and then tonight all of a sudden it's back to down to 10 cents a gallon, and that's concerning as well, because we've gone back and forth and trying to figure out a way to accommodate what we've been told by our bond counsel that we need to do to be able to achieve and get an FBO. We had decided to go the route of having a standards, which got voted down tonight, and so here we are. And in good faith, I told Marty it'd be fine if you guys wanted to be on the agenda. I know you've been asking for a while, but we needed clarification before we move forward as well. So I just want to say, you know, I understand what your desires are, and you want to do, and you want to enhance service, and I agree with Chad, or I'm sorry, Councilman Hitchcock, for 10 more minutes. And I'm being optimistic there. So, but I think though, as the mayor put it earlier, this is simply a proposal, and a proposal is just what it is. It's a proposal. We get proposals all the time. We get RFPs, and which are proposals, but we come back to the body with an actual contract in place. So all the things are detailed and lined out, and I think it would be also, you know, for us just to say we accept the entire proposal is one thing, but you know, as Marty said, and our bond counsel has stated earlier, the big thing is the flowage fee, and that's where we look at it too. So to just simply hand over all of it for 10 cents is that's where I have issues.
Well, and we're not asking for all of it either. We're not asking to be your exclusive provider. So if the services are so great that the city of Durant's providing, then nobody will buy fuel from us. They'll choose the city of Durant. It's free and fair competition, you know.
But I'd like to go back and look at it was the 10 cents established just for Southeastern, or was it established for anybody and everybody who came out there? Because I think
the FAA says that flowage fees have to be established for the airport. They can't be established on an individual basis. So when the authority set the flowage fee, Southeastern at the time was the only private tank operator. This authority could go back at any point in the future and raise that flowage fee for all private tank owners.
Sure.
And that's obviously your prerogative. We're not here to disagree with that, and obviously we'd have to pay whatever flowage fee the authority chooses to set. The negotiations you referenced a minute ago with flowage fees going up and down were negotiations that we had entered into with you, and we had a variety of different proposals or different ways, and one of the higher flowage fees was that we utilized tanks owned by the city of Durant. You rejected that proposal, so we're back to where we are.
Understood. I mean, and in all fairness, this is, and like I said, I know this has been drug on for several months with you guys, but we also have a lot of liability in this too. It's not just as simple as, do we like this guy or we don't like that guy? It has to do with the fact that we have to look at it as a whole, with the authority. So.
Oh, we understand that completely. Our best interest is with the health of the airport, the city of Durant, and the flying public, you know, at heart. So. Sure.
Well, authority members, would it be safe to say that we could consider to table for further discussion? Because I think there is further discussion and negotiation, and I personally have got to get comfortable with what bond counsel is reminding us of and what Marty's reminding us of as far as the legitimate, compliant IRS rules and regs that we need to be abiding by. Long story short, are we at a place maybe to table, or do we want to take action, or what's the authority's pleasure?
Just quick question. Sorry for coughing in a loud mic there. And I got 7 more minutes. If we pass it, don't pass it, whatever. If we pass it tonight, could this body could change the flowage rate anytime before they take over, correct? Before they, I mean, there's legitimate stuff you have to do before anything is going to be pumped out there. They don't have tanks out there today. And so my question is, I mean, you guys could set and I say you guys because I won't be here, set the flowage rate at anything you wanted it to be at, right?
Yeah, and Councilman.
Because that's the only thing that has to be in the
Right.
contract. Nothing else is even, the contract you state is only the flowage fee.
Vice Chairman, that's not the only issue for me, though.
I got you.
As I mentioned the other one, but, and Tim just alluded to it too, we've got contracts for our facilities and buildings and things in place that, and we're not talking about a contract here.
But the only thing that would be in the contract would be the flowage fee.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know that I
What
necessarily
else
agree
would
with
be in
that.
there?
I don't know if contract or agreement is the right terminology, but I mean, I definitely think there would be more to that than that, because obviously there's been issues at the airport that we didn't really have a way to address it because there wasn't an agreement or a contract, and I don't know legally the difference, which one makes the best sense.
I guess in my point, that the services they provide, why do we care? Because if they provide a ton of services or don't provide, that's on them.
Because they or anyone, and the guys, I'm not talking about you, but someone can tell me they're gonna do something out there, they're gonna be there 24/7, and I approve everything, and I get calls, they're not there. I mean, a contract or an agreement solidifies that for me, if indeed.
I agree with that, Mayor, but to be fair, DW Aviation is your contracted FBO. And so that's kind of where we're at is, you don't need that with us. Basically, we're renting out hangar space already. We just want to expand on that service. You know, it's not something that, can't support both of us. But I mean, you do have a current contract. If you didn't have a current contract with DW Aviation, then I would agree with that, because you need a contract with somebody, because the last thing you want to happen is everybody's gone.
Yeah, the last thing you want to happen is nobody at your airport. So the authority has already set the standards for what you want to occur at your airport, and you've got that contractually obligated with DW Aviation. So he's bound to provide the services you want. So with us, there's not a chance of somebody not being there and not providing the services you want, because you already have that contractually bound with him. We're simply in addition to.
Mr. Brooks or Marty?
I just wanted to remind everybody that actually DW Aviation's on a month-to-month contract right now. Question B was exactly that, trying to solidify that in a way that was either full contract or full employee. And until we get resolution to that, we don't know where that contract's going. So it could come or go. He's on a month-to-month basis right now to forever if we don't do some kind of move.
I'm just pulling up the city of Ardmore. You just mentioned a few moments ago.
Yeah.
2016, the city entered into an agreement between the city of Ardmore and KMA Aviation to provide FBO services. So, I mean,
There's two different airports at Ardmore.
Yeah, KMA Aviation is Ardmore Municipal, Ardmore Downtown. It's a single service, single FBO entity. The city of Ardmore has a contract with them to provide the services they want. Ardmore Municipal Airport is Ardmore's second airport out to the north side of town. Gene Autry Airport.
So are you saying that those FBOs do not have any sort of agreement or contract with the city?
I can't speak to that, no.
Okay.
I mean, I would expect that at least one of them probably had a contract or some kind of standards the city wanted to see met at that airport, but I couldn't speak to whether or not both of them do.
We had a time for a motion to table or a motion to consider or deny.
Mr. Mayor, I'd kind of like to table the thing. I'd like to make a motion to table it because I'm not real sure. I have nothing against either one of these guys, but when they're talking about not having any kind of contract, I agree with you that we would need something in writing, and we need to find out more about, we need to tie the two things in with the bond man and with this, and then get Dwayne straight on his month-to-month. Seems like we got several other things, so can I make the motion we table it?
And that, we have a motion to table? Do we have a second? We have a motion to table.
I'll second, and I agree with what Ms. Gruby's saying, that you gotta have some kind of agreement, and it's not so much to say that you have to do this or that, it's more of a, you can't do this or that, is what I'm more so concerned about. So I think come into some type of agreement, and then also, it sounds like we need to work on the flowage rate.
We have a motion, we have a second to table. Any further discussion?
Well, the only comment I'd like to add is that, the addition of a flowage fee to a contract would lock the authority conceivably into that flowage fee. So if it could swing both directions, if we, as we desire or as we predict, can increase fuel sales, locked lower flowage fee by contract could deprive the city of money. It could cost the city money. However, it could also work the same way. A locked-in high flowage fee could effectively put us out of business. So I think our opinion is that a floating or a contract that doesn't specify the flowage fee would grant this authority the right or the privilege to adjust the flowage fee as necessary whenever they saw fit. So it's a little risk aspect on our end, but it's also advantageous to the authority.
I appreciate that, David and Casey both. I'm about to call for the vote, and we're still under discussion, but I've got to personally, I got to just have a little better handle on this, okay? Secretary, record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groovy.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
No.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. And guys, if I can assure you, Ms. Groovy, Councilmember Groovy and myself will be here. We've got new council members, but I think every one of them are in the audience still and have heard your presentation, and we'll have maybe a good handle on your next presentation.
From our experience witnessing other council meetings, is that our understanding correct that a table will automatically place this on the next regular meeting agenda?
Yes, and I would highly suggest that bond counsel and Mr. Marty and city manager and Greg, yeah, I know they have been, but for our sake, conduct along with you guys some good heart-to-hearts, and let's try to get a resolution to your request. And I don't disagree that, it sounds really good, but we're in a position to dot the I's and cross the T's, and that's all we're trying to do, guys.
And Mr. Mayor, we appreciate your time and thank you for listening to us. If you guys have any other questions between now and your next meeting, please reach out to either one of us. We'd be happy to walk you through and sit down one-on-one if we need to.
We'll be doing that. Thank you.
So.
Thank you both. That takes us to new business. Anything under new business? Hearing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Secretary, record the vote, please.
Trustee Hawthorne.
Aye.
Trustee Groovy.
Aye.
Trustee Dills.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Hitchcock.
Aye.
Chairman Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. We are adjourned out of Durant Airport Authority. Entertain. We did recess, didn't we? Yes. Entertain a motion to reconvene in regular city council session.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk, record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groovy.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, motion carries. We are back into regular city council session. And I believe we were all the way to item number 8, executive session. Entertain a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to enter into executive session. The clerk will record the vote, please.
Councilmember Hawthorne.
Aye.
Councilmember Groovy.
Aye.
Councilmember Dills.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hitchcock.
Aye.
Mayor Tomlinson.
Aye, we are adjourned to executive session, and we will return.